Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head up to Jämtland County here in Sweden once again, and this is another brewery who I have never tried anything from, and as I always say, I really enjoy introducing you guys to these new, very small and local breweries here on the channel. So for this one we are going to go up to a little place just outside of Östersund, and we're having a taste of my first beer from Revsunds Brewery, and this one is their Badass Black IPA coming in at 6.3%, and as far as I can remember, this is one of the beers that I got through the local assortment, which was released on the 1st of February 2019 through Systembolaget. It seems to be that this year they're going to release new local beers and things like that every month, so keep an eye on that if you are watching from here in Sweden. But very much looking forward to this one. The Black IPA is a style that you don't see all that many of these days, because it seems to have been that everything has been dropped in favour of the New England IPAs these days, although this was a style that was very popular just a couple of years ago, but it's one that I very much enjoy. So as I say, looking forward to trying this one, and I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I'll do in the future from Revsunds Brewery. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, of course. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Revsunds Brewery. So the Revsunds Brewery was founded in Revsund, which is to the southeast of Östersund in Jämtland County, which is kind of, it's in the sort of northern part of Sweden, I guess you would say, kind of in the northwest, I guess. But the brewery was founded by Tommy Jonasson and Henrik Spansk back in 2016, and they started out life in a very small sauna building with a small 200-litre brewing kit, but they soon bought new equipment and began brewing beer on a larger scale at Jämtlands Brewery, who are one of the older craft breweries that you're going to find here in Sweden actually. But over the last few years they've continued to expand their capacity, and in March 2018 they opened their own brew pub in Pilgrimstad, which is again next to Jämtlands Brewery's facility. But the beers are now available through Systembolaget nationwide, and they've brewed somewhere in the region of 20-25 different types of beer as well, and this one is their latest release from what I understand. They did used to have a beer that was called Little Badass or Baby Badass or something like that, and that was a kind of a different iteration of this Black IPA from what I gather. So this is basically a new recipe release from what I gather. But yeah, there wasn't too much other information available on these guys. There seemed to be a very, very new small brewery, and as I've mentioned before, there's somewhere in the region of 300 to 400 little craft breweries popped up in Sweden now. So, a hell of a lot. There's a huge home brewing culture up here, so it's no surprise that that number has, become a hell of a lot bigger just in the last couple of years. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about the brewery for the moment. If you want to learn a little bit more, do check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram, of course, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on there. But yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself. So as you can see, really quite nicely presented, this one. I like what they've got kind of going this one. I do like it's got the kind of Hermes helmet on this one with the wings and stuff like that, but really nicely presented actually. I do like, I always wonder as well why sometimes you get some of these breweries that choose the English words for things rather than calling it Revsunds Brewery, because Revsunds of course doesn't particularly sound like such a it doesn't sound like a particularly English name or anything like that, but I guess with being where they are, they probably do send some of their beers over the border into Norway actually. But you can see they've also got their own customised bottle caps, which is quite surprising actually when you consider how young and how small this brewery is. But if they're brewing with Jämtlands Brewery, then I guess they've got the contacts there to do it. But as I mentioned at the start of the video, this one comes in at 6.3%, Black IPA, nicely presented. So without further ado, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. So yeah, very curious to see what this one throws up. Of course, when it comes to the Black IPA, as I've mentioned, this is a style that I really quite enjoy, and it's quite an interesting one because personally, I've always felt that the Imperial Black IPAs are where you get the best out of this style, because you get a little bit of caramel and things like that just to beef up the malt base a little bit, whereas if you have them just being kind of plain and roasted and black malty, then I think it doesn't quite have the complexity and interest, if you like, the sort of that you can get from the style if you do it as an imperial. So I'm very curious to see what this one kind of pops out. But when you open this beer up straight away, I'm getting some nice oranges and some really quite sharp red fruity notes out of this one. So just be aware of that when you open up this bottle. But as you can see, and as you would kind of expect from a black IPA, this one's poured a lovely dark sort of ebony rosewood colour. I do wonder, you've got two styles that are very closely related to each other, the Black IPA and the Cascadian Dark. The Cascadian Dark basically is a Black IPA just with only Cascade hops in it, or Cascade is the main feature hop. But you can see with this beer, as I mentioned, a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. There's a solid finger of a frothy, I would say kind of light beigey coloured head on this one. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there. If I shine this one up to the light, it does have a very, very dark, almost Coca-Cola coloured edge to it, but otherwise nothing overall particularly surprising about this one when you consider the fact that it is a black IPA. It's got the appearance that you would definitely expect from this style. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Oh, now I tell you something, this beer actually smells really nice. I really like the aroma of this one. Yeah. So it actually comes across as being very, very smooth. I mean, you can pick up the roasty black malts in there, but on top of that, you've got almost like a kind of, you've got a bready quality to this one. It's almost like a kind of well-fired bread crust sort of thing. It really reminds me of some like German bread or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if they're using a little bit of German malt in here, but then again, there are a good few Swedish malteries as well, so they're probably using something local in this too, but German malt is, I think, by and large what a lot of the Swedish craft breweries use. I might be wrong in thinking that perhaps some of the aromas that I'm getting out of this are Weirmann malts from Bamberg, because they just have such a distinctive aroma. I'd be very curious to know that if they're using some Weirmann malts from Bamberg in this. But yeah, lovely aroma to this one, as I say, some roasty black malts in there, some brown bready qualities, a little touch of chocolate or something, but I'm picking up a little bit of a caramelly note and a biscuity note in this one too. There's definitely a good balance in that malt base between the sweetness and the sort of darker aspects that you would expect in this style. So I do wonder if this one's going to be a lower ABV black IPA that has the flavour profile a little bit more akin to the double black IPA or the Imperial Black IPA. But I really like the way the malts are coming out in this one, so in terms of aroma, this one gets a big thumbs up from me. I really like that. On the hoppy side of things then, as I was mentioning, you've got a nice, there is a little bit of earthiness there, but you've got a good little bit of a floral aromaticity to this one. Definitely some nice floral and grassy quality coming out of this beer. And it's got, I really want to say there's a little bit of orange in there. The orange is just... orange is just really it's the fruit that came straight to mind as soon as I smelt this beer. I think there is a little bit of a red fruity quality in there as well, like some sharp kind of, some sharp raisiny notes to it, maybe even some plummy qualities. It's definitely got a little bit of that red fruitiness to it, some figgy notes as well. Maybe there's a little touch of Williamette or something in here too, which would be quite interesting. I always like playing guess the hops with these beers, and there's just something about it has an almost black curranty, blackberry sort of thing to it, and that really is making me wonder whether there's a little bit of Williamette being used in this beer, which is quite interesting. But in terms of its aroma, it really is very nice. It's got lovely juicy fruit qualities. You are getting a little bit of a hoppy freshness to this one at the same time. And the malt base, as I say, I think comes across very nicely as well. So with this one in particular, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of it, because I think the aroma of this one's one of it's just a really nice combination of things. It's one of the more interesting black IPA aromas I've come across in the next little while. I'm really just hoping that the beer itself kind of lives up to that. But let's see how we get on with this one then. So this one is the Badass Black IPA from the Revsunds Brewery in Jämtland County here in Sweden. Let's get stuck into this one. Slanja, skål. Oh yeah, Now I will say, not what I expected, but it really does work actually. This beer, I've only had one sip of it right enough, so let's just take another one and see if that impression's right. But my first impression of this beer really is, it comes in and it's actually, it's in the aftertaste. The further you go into the aftertaste with this one, that's when you really start to get more of the black IPA qualities out of this one. The middle of your palate just kind of dries out and you start to get some of the roasty black malts in this beer are coming across very subtly, to be quite honest with you. That's really nice. Yeah. I'm going to say straight away with this beer, for me it gets a thumbs up. It's really just nicely done actually, and by no means is this beer's not going to blow your head off in terms of its hoppiness, its fruitiness, or the maltiness or anything like that. This is one of these beers where it's all about how these flavours blend together, but I will say straight away, I think Revsunds Brewery have done a good job of this. In some ways it actually reminds me of some of the Slovenian IPAs and stuff like that I've reviewed for you, and the New Zealand ones a little while before that. It seems to be that this beer, the way it's got a nice sort of almost oily, fruity quality to it actually, and the malt base is very smooth but leans towards the sweeter side of things, and that's something I've really found that was coming out in the Slovenian IPAs that Davor sent me, and also the New Zealand ones when I was reviewing those away back in 2015. You know, this one, if I blind tasted this and you told me guess what country it's from, I probably would think it's one of those two, to be honest with you. It's a really nice combination of flavours, this one, so you know, thumbs up to Revsunds Brewery for this one. They have done a nice job of this beer, and this one definitely makes me curious to try a sort of West Coasty style IPA from them, because they've got that little bit of sweetness from the malt base. Really nicely, and a lot of breweries these days are doing things like with the New England IPAs, they're just making them smooth but not giving any sweetness in the malt base. And so if they're doing their black IPAs like this, I'm very curious to see how they would actually do a New England IPA and also like an old school West Coast IPA. So I need to try a few more beers from this brewery, definitely. But yeah, I do like how this one is going together. So let's try and break it down then. Middle of your palate, you can definitely feel that little bit of a roasty black malt there, just blanket in the middle of your tongue. But initially it's quite smooth. On top of that, you can really feel some of the bready qualities to this. And like I was picking up in the aroma, the kind of overwhelming flavour of this beer actually is the you know, it is like that kind of roasted, almost well fired bread crust actually. It really is kind of quite like that. There is an element of a kind of slightly smoother German brown bready note to this one too, but right in the middle of your palate there's definitely a little bit of a slightly sweeter caramel and some biscuity notes. That's where it's kind of covering up the alcohol. The further forward you go on the tongue, there's maybe a tiny little bit of a woody note to this beer. But you know, it's the way that it brings out these the roasty black flavours is really nice. I like it how the middle of your palate just kind of dries out in this one, and then you start to get more and more of that black IPA element to it the further into the aftertaste you go. The way that all the flavours in this one just fits together is really quite nice. As I say, this isn't a beer that's going to blow the head off you. It's more one that's got a lot of subtleties to it, and it makes it just quite nice and easy to drink. But it does get a thumbs up from me. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this one again. And as I mentioned, the way that this one's kind of put together makes me curious about the other beers that they do. So on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, there's a little bit of earthiness there. That smooths out as you come kind of further forward. There's a little bit of a kind of floral aromaticity to this one towards the front of the palate too, and round the very front curve of the tongue, you've got a nice little, you've got a nice bit of a kind of grassy note to the beer as well, which is good. Yeah. I do like how this one's going together. I do suspect there might be a little bit of Williamette or something in here. I'd be very curious to know that actually. But the way that this one, the way that the flavours are coming out in this beer is very nice. That roasty black malt backbone, the further you go into the aftertaste, the more that starts to build a bridge with the earthy aspect of the hops. But behind the front curve of the palate, of course, that's where you get that little oily bubble where those juicy, fruity esters start to come out of the beer. And for me, this one's really nice. it definitely has, I think there's a little touch of an orangey quality to this one. There's just something in my head that's saying there could be a little bit of Amarillo or Mosaic or something like that in here. And Mosaic, of course, gives you a more tangerine orange, where the Amarillo is a little bit more of an oily orange. But there's definitely, there's either Cascade in this, Williamette, or both. I'm pretty sure that it's those two. The Amarillo, I think, might be a little bit more of a kind of a fart in the ocean or something like that. That's just more of a guess on my part. I think there is, to me, there is just a little touch of an orangey flavour to this beer. But yeah, it's got some nice, slightly sharper red fruity notes. It has a little bit of a raisiny sharpness to it, definitely some kind of juicier figgy qualities, and it's also got a bit of a kind of blackberry, blackcurrant kind of note. And the further you go into the aftertaste, the more it starts to lean towards the figgy, blackberry, blackcurrant notes that I was talking about as well. But I mean, overall, this is a beer that it really has everything that you could want from the style, and the flavours all fit together really quite nicely, and to be honest, you can't ask for much more than that. As I mentioned earlier, the black IPA is always one I felt that comes out a little bit better in the Imperial IPA, and that is one of the things that the Imperial Black IPAs, they tend to have a little bit more of an oily mouthfeel, and personally I just prefer that with the style. But in fairness to this one, when you consider it for what it is, it has got a good bit of flavour in it for the ABV, and it has some of the kind of sweeter aspects that you'd normally associate with the Imperial beer. So if I'm having, a regular black IPA, although that said, I would always pick the Imperial ones over the regular ones, not just because I'm Scottish, I just like the way that you get a bit of sweetness out of the malt base. But this one, as a regular black IPA, does have a little bit of that sweetness in it, and I really like that about it. So this beer, as I mentioned, gets a big thumbs up from me, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. It'd be interesting to try it on tap and just see if it gets a slightly thicker, more oily mouthfeel with the kind of cask, the keg conditioning rather than in the bottle, because the bottle beers are always a little bit more crisp, if you like, generally. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel of this beer, then I would say this one is mid-bodied, I think. Yeah. Mid-bodied beer for me, this one. Carbonation is quite smooth. It does have a little bit of activity to it. Overall, the mouthfeel, it has a little bit of wetness to it, but also a little bit of an oily character. Good little bit of hoppy bitterness, I would guess somewhere around the 50-60 IBU mark. There's a little bit of touch of that from the malt base, particularly when you go further into the aftertaste. The malt base has a really good balance between the roasty bitter notes and also the smoother and slightly sweeter elements, as I've mentioned. And there's also a nice little bit of a juicy, fruity quality to this one as well. But overall, like I said, this is a really nicely done black IPA. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again, and it does make me very curious about how they're doing their West Coast IPAs too. So I will definitely be returning to this brewery at some point in the near future. So yeah, maybe I can even get up to Jämtland and have a little look up there. I heard it's a very pretty part of the country, that and Dalarna, of course. So yeah, definitely a brewery that I'm going to keep an eye on in the future. So let's leave it at that for this one. This one, the Badass Black IPA, a really, really solid beer within the style. It's a shame that more breweries aren't brewing this style these days. But it's one that I've really quite enjoyed reviewing for you, and if you get the chance to try this beer, I recommend that you do. If you like the black IPA style, I think this is one that you are going to appreciate quite nicely. But yeah, let's leave it at that. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from the Revsunds Brewery as well, and I will definitely be returning to these guys at some point in the near future. This has been a really nice one to review in a style that you don't see all that often anymore. So yeah, big thumbs up to Revsunds Brewery. Check them out, and until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys very soon. This is the Badass, a black IPA from Revsunds Brewery in Revsund in Jämtland County, or Pilgrimstad, sorry I should say, in Jämtland County here in Sweden. Until the next time, Slanger just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Skål.